Hi everyone, welcome to Inspire Her 25. It's another Saturday and I am still excited. It's Women's Month. So Inspire Her is the series we're having through the month of March. We're learning from women in established businesses and career, and we want to know how they've been able to move from stage to stage, the possible challenges they had, how they were able to overcome it. And I'm very certain you would learn something from them because at one point they were in your same space. They were where you are at the moment. But for them to have been able to make a move, for them to have been able to shift to another level, it means there was a growth they experienced. And that is what we're going to be learning, practical ways on how we can accelerate. This is the month where we're accelerating action, but not just for this month. We're accelerating action in everything we do, even beyond the month of March. But you need to be equipped with the strategies, the tools, the skills you need to accelerate action. We have with us Zainab Haruna today. And yes, her bio has been up, but once she comes up, you would meet her. She's that person you've longed to meet. She's an international development practitioner. So, ladies, join me as I welcome Zainab Haruna for Inspire Her series today. Hello, Zainab.
Hi Onyinye, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm glad you're here with us, and I am also ready for all the nugget, the wisdom, and everything you're going to be sharing with us today. We had your bio on, and people have read about you. Some persons are in the NGO space, some persons are into um, initiative, social impact, have social impact initiatives they are working on. And they are looking forward to learning from this international development professional. And yes, they've read about you, but then how would you love to introduce yourself in your own words?
Okay. I work in a social. Yeah, right. I work in a social impact space, and I've been working in social impact space for over a decade. Um, I like to think of myself. I think in a nutshell, basically, I want to leave the world. I'm someone who, through my work, I want to leave the world better than I met it. And so that's essentially what drives my work. I am quite interested in issues that affect women, women and girls. I'm very big on poverty, issues around poverty, gender expression, women's economic empowerment is my core passion. And yeah, I guess every other thing is already captured in the bio that was shared. Yeah.
Awesome. So, women, gender. So, when you've been here for over a decade, so how has your journey been for over a decade now?
Right. So maybe I usually like to start when I'm telling my story. I usually like to start from my undergrad. So in undergrad, I was a science student. Right. I studied biology, specialized in botany, and I was a very good science student. You know, aced all my classes, did very well, and the future looked like I was going to just become a scientist, mostly maybe become a lecturer, which is something that I still have on my radar and would still like to do, or to go work in plant genetics because I was quite interested in genetics and biotechnology, and things like that. But then even in undergrad, I was working on kind of like my own initiatives, my own little projects. So in my first year, I joined like a social club. And by my final year, I had created my own social club, right, where we had young people,
Amazing.
and we're mostly putting events and things together around the school campus. So I've always been interested in organizing and working on projects. I have a strong passion for delivering projects efficiently and effectively. And so by the time I was graduating, even though I had a really good grade, there was that thought at the back of my head asking, is this what do you want to do the science? Do you want to push science even further? There was even a point where I started putting my master's application together, because immediately after I was thinking immediately after youth service I would just go ahead for my master's and then go do a master's in genetics or biotechnology. And I had started putting the application process together, but then I reached out to the because I was working with an agency, and I in the middle of it I changed my mind and I said, you know what, hold on, I want to work a bit so that I can gain some work experience and then I can fully define what it is that I want. Because this doesn't feel like it's fully exactly what I want. So I want to take a step back and rethink this, work a bit, and then I'll come back to this. And I'm very, very glad that I took that decision, because my path just went an entirely different route, which I really enjoy. And one of the things that I do want to emphasize to young women, everywhere that I meet them and I speak to them, is you might not know what you want, right? That might not be clear to you, but usually you will know what you do not want. And that's a very good starting point. If you know what you do not want, you start defining, okay, yeah, clearly, I don't know exactly what, because that can also be an issue for many young women, like really being certain, like, this is what I admire people who I meet, and they're like, this is who I want to be in life, and they've always wanted to be that person and they figure it out. It hasn't been that way for me. And so, but when I meet people who are like me, who, haven't had it all, don't have it all figured out yet, my first thought is to say, okay, you don't have to have it all figured out, but if you know what you do not want, then you can start from there, and then you start navigating, identifying exactly what you don't want, take that off the table, take that off the roster, and then focus on bits that you enjoy and elements that you enjoy. And so that decision to work a bit, I was able to get my first job after youth service, and it was in a non-for-profit, an NGO in Nigeria. And I had, even before then, like at the tail end of my youth service, as I was closing out on my youth service, I founded my own NGO because I wanted to be doing work. It was a youth focused NGO. I wanted to be doing work supporting young people, especially around, generally things like this, career building, entrepreneurship, and things like that. And that was coming from a place where I realized that I had things that I did not know. I had spent 4 years in the university, and there was so much that I was unprepared for by the time I was coming into, into the labor market. There were things, basic things that I did not know, and I realized that if I didn't know it, then there would be many other young people like me who also didn't have that information. And so I approached it, rather than going out and looking for this information myself, why not learn with other people? So I curated sessions and summits and conferences based on things that I wanted to know and I wanted to understand. And I would be hosting the event, and I would be sitting right in the front, and I would be taking notes. And people would be like, it's not you who organized this event. What are you doing? And I'm like, yes, that is why I organized it, because it's something I want to know. And I figured I can't be the only one who wants to know this thing. So I just put it together like that. And so by the time, and I did all of that throughout my youth service, so that by the time I was completing youth service, I kind of I had built a reputation, I had built a portfolio. People knew me around, I was working in Abuja, then people knew me around Abuja. I was at events, I was speaking, I was doing things like that. And so it was even an opportunity that came out of running my own organization that helped me land my first role in an organization. I was invited to a radio show to speak on young people and entrepreneurship, and what that's looking like for Nigerians in the country at that time. And someone else was invited onto the show, much more established woman, vast industry knowledge, had run different organizations, very big deal. And she was the one who was on the show with me. And I did not know that she was such a big deal, right? So I came on and I was speaking mostly from the youth perspective, from a young person's perspective. But she was really impressed by how I spoke and how I was able to put my thoughts together. That she then invited me over and to have a chat with me, to ask me what my plans were, what I was currently doing. And that's how she then offered me a role in our organization. And that's the first place that I actually, started working. And it has been that same story over time. That first leg into the proper corporate space, like a 9 to 5, I enjoyed it. I really liked it, and over time, one thing I've tried to be consistent on though is not to, what's the how do I put this now, to always look for opportunities, right? To always look for opportunities to grow. So the fact that I was in that role, it was a great role, but I thought, I want to also do, I want to do something more, I want to do something different. I want to build my capacity, I want to build my skills. So I went off for my masters. This time I could then go for my masters in development. So I did my masters in African development. I got a
Okay,
scholarship, went
that
to
was the
London.
time when you changed you for your masters. You didn't now go for the the botany field.
Genetics,
You went
yes.
into
Genetics,
yes,
yes.
you went into development.
Yes,
I
yes,
love what you
yes,
said
yes.
about you might not know what you want, but you actually know what you don't want. And I want to know how the connection between you and this woman went. Because there are times when you're seated with someone and you don't know the person's capacity. So, how did it go with your perception? Because I might not know you, but then, or let's say something that is popular with people on, you just see someone, some person might not even be as, will I say, courteous enough to greet the person until that person is introduced and you're like, oh, good afternoon, good evening, this and that, yes, ma, and all of that. And then this person is looking at you like, I've been right here with you. So do you need to know me? So how was this the relationship? Because this person, like to some extent, this person perceives you as a professional in your own level, at the level where you are. And they
Yeah,
need what you want, the youth
yeah.
perspective to the
Mm,
corporate they already have. So how
mm.
do you now go you interacting with this person?
Right. So, when this was many years ago, so I can't remember exactly how the interaction went, but I do remember working. The good thing though was I had been to that particular radio station many times in the past, right? I
Okay.
was doing a lot of radio shows, like a lot of radio appearances. Then whenever they wanted to speak to a young woman, who was doing something and making a name for herself, I got a lot of request to come on radio to speak. So that particular radio station I had been to like maybe 3 4 times in the past. I was familiar with the staff. It was an environment that was comfortable for me. So when I walked in, I was also, in my element, right? So when I saw generally, typically when I walk into a space, I try to say hello to everybody, right? Regardless of whether I know them, whether I don't know them. There are people in the room before me and I'm just coming in. I will just say hello, good afternoon. Just basic courtesy, right? And when I did that, I didn't know that she was going in because the radio station houses many different, radio stations. So I didn't know that she was going in on the same show as I was going to. They hadn't told me that I would have another guest. I thought it would be just me. So I just said hello, and then typically when you then come into the room, the host will introduce you, both guests, and give you like a brief insight into what you're going to be talking about on that day. So they introduced us, we did pleasantries. I like, oh, hello, who are you? What do you do? And I told her, and I said hello, and we talked about ourselves for a little bit before we then started. And then when the show started, it was very clear that she had so much knowledge. So it was just my perspective as a young person, and then she had such vast experience and stuff. So we were piggybacking. She referred to my youth perspective to make her point, and then I referred to her vast knowledge to make her point. So it was a really interactive,
But like an
session.
exchange of value.
Exactly, exchange of value. And so by the time we were done, she was like, "Oh, I really liked the what you had to say. It's very rare to see young people. It's rare to see young people who are so, especially young women who are so smart and articulate and things like that. I would really like to get to know you more." And I'm like, "Yes, sure. That sounds great." And we exchanged cards. And then I met up with her later, and we had a couple of interactions after that. And then she's like, "I would like to bring you into my organization. Would that be something that you're open to?" And I said, yes, that would be something that I'm open to. And the rest, was history.
That's really great. That's amazing. And to think that you've been going to the same radio station over and again and nothing happened, but it didn't change the fact that you delivered your best at every given opportunity you had to be there. And you knew
Yeah,
what you were doing because you said you
yeah,
were already in your element. So you knew what it was you came for. And even if nobody was there, you would do the exact same thing you had done.
Exactly.
So talking
Yeah.
about you as a core member, how was it organizing events and managing your PPA and doing all the other things you were doing at that time?
I'm so glad you asked. You're really taking me back with these questions that you're asking. Because I remember then that what I did with my youth service was that I served at the Raw Materials Research and Development Council in Abuja. And what I did was they have a hall, right? They have a hall that they use for their own, company, organization programs and things like that. I ended up just using that hall for my own programs, because I'm serving there. All I need to do, when you're serving there, it's like you work there basically. So I would just go to the
Yes.
department. I would go to the department that's responsible for locking, like for booking the hall, and I'll say, what's the availability of this hall? I would like to use it for something, and they would like, before what do you want to use it for? And then I'll tell them I want to organize something. And then usually what I did is my speakers, I would get a speaker from also within the organization, because they had, like, these are people with experience. They've been working for decades, 20 years, 30 years, quite a long time. And so they have such amazing experience as professionals. So when I wanted to host events, I would then reach out to some of the people working in the organization, like the directors and things like that, and say, I have this program coming up. Would you mind coming to speak? And so when I go to get the hall, it would just be like, oh, we are having a program for the core members here, and this director is coming to speak. And it's very easy to then get it, to then get the hall. And even they were so kind that even after I left, I was still able to use it, because I was also hosting like a schools across the country. And I was able to come back and use it by virtue of the relationship that I had established, while I was there. So it's, again, another point. It's also really good to maintain relationships as you move through life.
Oh, interesting. It's good to maintain relationship. But do you think young people struggle with maintaining relationship with people outside their age bracket and their cadre? So like, oh, this person is high, and this person is not even in their gen. So I don't want to just speak to it as a Gen Z element, but maintaining relationship with these older people. What do you think is the constraint with younger people having that relationship, because it doesn't tend to last, and sometimes older people have a problem with keeping up with young people.
I think that's not a new. I don't think that's a new issue or something that's related to Gen Z. I think even as a millennial, I am a millennial. We are not known for having building intergenerational and maintaining intergenerational relationships. So I don't think it's a Gen Z issue. I think it's a navigating that intergenerational gap and kind of try to be deliberate about how you do it. It's something that I have spoken about before on kind of like my social platform when I was active on Facebook, to say that one thing that people really, there are different, their values transcend, age gaps, right? So values of
Yes.
professionalism, values of integrity, values of, having ethics, knowing what you stand for, being principled. Those are values that people will respect and appreciate regardless of how old they are. So if you're a young person and you have those strong values, and you're seeing another person who you want to build a connection with, and you bring, and those values are at the forefront of your engagement, they will value that relationship and they will engage with you. And it goes both ways. Even young people can also look out for those values in kind of like older people, to say, oh, I really like what this person stands for. I would really love to build a relationship with this person and continue engaging with this person. It's a values thing rather than an age thing. And I think that what we are struggling with right now is that kind of like that there's the values gap as well, where younger people want to, maybe their interests are different, right? Or how they engage with technology is different. So it's those it's that is happening more, rather than, it's just an age thing. So my thought to young people is identify like minds, see regardless of how old you are, there will always be someone who you really connect with and has the values that you're looking for and stuff. And then see how you can build that relationship. It doesn't have to be like a blanket thing where you just want to build a connection with everybody that's older than you. Speaking for myself, I'm someone who is, I have a very, like, my friends, like, I have a very small friend circle, to be honest, right? I have a very small, close knit circle. And then I have a wider circle of influence, where I have people like in my professional networks and friends of friends and things like that. And then I have a bigger network of how I am positioned kind of like within the corporate space where people know of me, even though they haven't worked with me before. And I also know of people, even though I haven't worked with them. And so my goal, my goal has always been keep that first circle, my circle, the people who are close to me, who have like the inroads, who can call me up at midnight and I'll pick up and engage with them. I keep that circle small. It works differently for other people. Some people have a bigger circle. Some people have 12, 15, 20 close, very, very close friends. I don't know how they do it, but it's fantastic because that's also a community. But for me, what works for me is to keep the inner circle small and then have like the circle expanding as I kind of go out. And so at every point in time, you'll find in that inner circle is you'll find people of different age groups. I have very young friends, right? I have Gen Z friends, right? And then I have like people of the same age as me, and then I have people who are older than me that I completely trust and respect. So it's just a values and connection thing, I think.
Amazing. So it's not really about the age. Like you said, values transcend age gap. It's finding somebody you connect with. And I think this
Yeah.
also works with mentorship. When I'm able to connect with you, I can tell you something that you would guide me on. So how do you think younger people can find or assess mentorship with older people who have the knowledge they seek, and besides that, also identifying people that share the same value as you, because it might not be something you get to know immediately. You might be thinking this person is this, and then you get close and you want to pull out or something like that, and it doesn't always look nice.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Fantastic question. And something that I've constantly spoken about is that is this. I feel like it's a misconception that mentorship always has to be this active thing where there's two people and they are locked in. This person is a mentor, this person is a mentee. We establish a communication that you are my mentor, you are my mentee, and we schedule meetings and stuff like that. I don't think, for me, in my experience, my mentorship journey hasn't always worked that way. Mentorship can be active, yes, which is the, two-way communication. You are this person's mentor, you agree to be mentors and all of that. It can be active, it's great, it works, right? But for me, actually, what has worked most for me has been inactive. These are my terms, actually. Inactive mentorship, where I identify someone. And also the thing, especially like what you said, where you're like, you want someone to mentor you, but then you get close and you realize that it's not really what you want, and then pulling out becomes unpleasant. I i don't think that there's any perfect human being, right? I don't think that there's any perfect
Yes.
human being, but I do believe that individuals have the values, some of the values that I want to emulate in myself. For example, if I want to be a great at delivering on time, right? If I'm always falling behind on my timelines and I want to be able to deliver better so I can become a better professional, I will have a boss or someone within my organization that will be like, this person every time she's always, or he's always, his work is always on time. I really like that. I want to emulate that. And so what I will do is I will observe that person from afar. I don't have to come up to that person and say, please, can you mentor me on how to deliver on time? Not really. All I have to do is observe, right? And watch, and then maybe ask questions here and there, like, sir, ma, I've noticed that every time they bring you, always, how do you do it? How I see me, I'm always struggling. And then they can advise you based on that, like one thing. Maybe on other things, that person is not as great, right? Maybe, for example, they are controlling or they are rude to people and they have outbursts. I wouldn't want that person to mentor me because that means that I have embodied their entire personality and I want to be like them. But I only want that specific aspect where they are fantastic that I want to emulate, which I think is great that I want to emulate. If there's someone else who's really great at providing opportunities for younger people to come up behind them. And I look at that, I'm like, I also want to be able to create opportunities for younger people behind me. And I see that this person is doing a fantastic job. I will watch and observe how they do it, and I'll go up to them. Some of the people who have mentored me have been people on social media that I've never met in one day or spoken to or have any personal relationships with. But I observe what they do because they post about their activities, they post about what they've done. And I look at that and I learn from that. And I'm like, I would really like to do that. Then I'll also go and do some of my own learnings and findings and research as well. And I'll use that to go for. So the idea that mentorship, and I'll be honest with you, most of the time, the people that we really want to mentor us are also, stretched for time as well, right? Like
Yeah.
they are trying to fit so many things into a 24-hour day, and they are usually running behind. They might be parents, they will have little kids, they have work deliverables on their table, they have this. And coming to that person and say, please, can you devote 1 hour every week to sit with me and just coach me through this thing, is also asking for more from that person. Is it possible for you to do an inactive type of mentorship, or and go up to them from time to time and ask them specific questions as to what you want? Our learning, I'm a big believer of, you have to drive your own learning, right? You can't always, people can't always hold your hand through your learning. You have to be in charge of your own professional development. So if you know the areas that you want to develop in, if you know the areas where, and sometimes even this question, some people will come up to you and be like, I want to be like you. And then you'll be like, okay, be like me in what aspect? Like, I don't know, I just want to be like you. Okay, that's very unclear and very vague, right? So if you have to be clear first, you have to define for yourself, what is it that I want to learn, what is it that I don't know that I want to know, and how do I want to build my capacity in this area and this area and that area. You identify that first, and then you can now identify people who have those qualities or who are doing great in those areas, and then see what you can learn from them. Except, of course, if we're talking about technical mentorship, maybe it's related to some technical expertise, like programming or things like that, which you cannot learn from afar. Then you can then identify someone that works in that space and see if they can teach you those skills. That's different. But if it's soft skills, I would always advise, see if you can develop an inactive mentorship and have that person work with you from afar. Of course, I've been involved in formal mentorship arrangements. I've mentored, I've done mentorship for yearly West Africa fellows. I've done mentorship for the Queen's Young Leaders Award. I've been a mentor on that program. I've done mentorship for the Feroz Lodging Center at the London School of Economics. So I've been a mentor on different programs, right, which are structured environments where you then mentor someone. I have also been mentored, like I currently work at One Acre Fund. I've been in a mentorship program where I was paired, it was a coaching program. I was paired with a senior executive who then coached me in specific areas, especially around strategic long-term planning and things like that. So those are structured within kind of like structured platforms. But if this is someone you have no way of meeting or engaging with outside of, you don't, because they're outside of your normal circle, they're outside of your organization, they're outside of your friend circle, they're outside of the circle of influence, but you want to learn from them, try adopting like an inactive strategy first. And then if you have questions, go up to them with specific questions. And if you go up to people with specific questions, usually most of the time they will respond. It's when you go up to them with very vague questions that figuring out what you're trying to say takes too much time, and then you don't get that response.
Oh, amazing. So, like you said, people don't drive your personal development. It's something you have to do for yourself, and you have to
Yeah.
push yourself. So, the inactive mentorship you're talking about, I can also see it as learning from a distance. So, I'm watching you, I'm reading your posts, you're going for webinars, I'm coming on any webinar I see you on. It could be free. If it's something I can afford, something that is paid for, I wouldn't mind paying for it. But if it's something that
Yeah.
is really free, I can pay for it and be there. And I know,
Yeah.
like, this is you actively following this person and learning their thought process. Because sometimes that's what people want to know. They want to learn your thought process, but then they have a problem of, will I say, articulating it. It's not something that you just do in one day. It's something that you've been failing at things, learning, removing, adding, and you got to where you are. And then
Yeah.
I I want you to mentor me. In what aspect? And this person doesn't even understand. And then
Yeah.
some persons also think mentorship means you thinking for that person. So I told my mentor I want to travel. My mentor now said you would have to book your ticket, you have to go to the embassy, you have to when you arrive and when you get to this airport, or when you arrive at this place, take take right, go left, do this. So what did you now contribute?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have
Yeah.
anything to give, and it doesn't
Yeah.
even seem good. So how's your experience been mentoring younger people within corporate space and also in the social impact space?
Mm. The experience has been good because most of the mentorship that I have done has been kind of like within the structured frames of reference that I was referring to earlier. And so, usually, what would happen is if it was, for example, Yali West Africa, they would have like their mentorship templates, right, that the mentee
Yeah.
would use to log. So even before coming to the first session with the mentor, the mentee has to have identified what are the specific things that I want to, whether it's three or four or one or two things, that areas that I want to grow that I have identified for myself. Then your mentor is now work. Then you and your mentor will now be like, okay, how do you want to allocate our time? Because we have like maybe 6 weeks something together to do this. How do you want to allocate? Do you think we should spend like 80% of our time on this? Do you think these are the most important ones that you really want to build, or do you think we should build on this? And then we define all of that, and then going forward into the weeks afterwards, it's now engaging on how, on those different elements as we've identified them, right? So it has been good because we've been able to then work. So when I look back at where I started with a mentee, and then where the mentee was when I left them, they had now significantly improved. And many of my men, in fact, I mentored someone who then went on to register an organization, was having conferences also like for women, and invited me to come and speak on the conference, and it was really great. So mentees have also gone on to do really great. I have a mentee that now works as a program manager at Faith Foundation, and kind of like other ones as well. So it has been great. But when you were speaking earlier, one point that I wanted to also mention was that we there's also, in addition to what you talked about, there's also this thing where people want their mentors to be perfect. I think I alluded to that earlier, but I also wanted to emphasize it, right? Like, your mentor doesn't have to be perfect. Your mentor can mentor you in a particular area, but they could have flaws in other areas, and it's acceptable. It's okay. We are humans. We all have flaws. Because what you then see is, rather than looking for a mentor, people are looking for they then put their mentors on pedestals, right? They
Yeah.
are looking for a beacon
Flawless.
of hope. Yes, a flawless person. And then if they then find out that, the mentor did something sometimes somewhere that they don't agree with, they then like, I've cancelled this person, I've cancelled this entire individual. But that was where you were wrong in the first place. Because you shouldn't have put that person on that pedestal. You should have identified exactly what you wanted to learn from the person, as opposed to idolizing the whole person to say, oh, I want to be like this person. There's no person that can be exactly like you, right? You are an individual. There are many other individuals in the world. They will have their own unique experiences, their own unique stories, their life, their learning journeys that they've taken through to get where they are, which will never be the same with yours. So you cannot think that you want to be exactly like someone else. So identifying exactly what it is that you want to learn from a person will go a long way to, erase those headaches that you'll encounter later. And when you're like, I can't believe that my mentor said this, oh my god, this is terrible, this is Hi, Onyinye, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Wow, awesome. And that's really the challenge with looking for, I think that's the point where people stop looking for what they came for. and start looking for what they don't have any business with. Because you didn't come to look for a perfect human, you came to look for an aspect of a person's life that is going to be beneficial and helpful to your good. So, talking about the social impact space, so what can you say about the work many young people are doing today, and are there specific things you think we should be addressing in the society?
I think young people, especially young women, have always been very active in the social impact space, driving change, whether as activists, whether working within structured organizations, or just lending their voice on social media or documenting and writing, which is increasingly one area that I am quite particular about, like documenting stories and things like that. I think young people, young women have always been at the forefront of change as we've seen it over the years, right? Um, I do think that as the world continues to change, of course, we are seeing more and more emphasis on technology and the use of technology, so that we are able to connect with people who are not as close in as close, just they are farther away proximity wise. We are still able to reach and engage those people, but it's also still important to continue to engage with those who are what's the word now, who don't have as much access to technology, right? Those in at the grassroots, those in the rural areas, who still need to be advocated for, whose voices still need to be heard and uplifted. It's still important to ensure that we continue to raise those voices and amplify those voices. And I think that work is also happening as well. Young people are also driving that in through their various actions. I am currently I've been on the advisory board for the Nigerian Youth Futures Fund for over 2 years, and we've been providing funding to young people, leading change across the entire country, right? And we've seen amazing things happen, because one of the things we wanted to do with that fund was to fund we like to say fund those who are not the usual suspects, right? People who would typically not get funding, right? So we it's one of the only times that I have seen where we are funding individuals, right? The fund has a portfolio where we fund individuals. So you don't have to have an organization. You don't have to have registered an organization, but you as an individual could be driving change. You could be doing things in your communities, but you are shortchanged because you don't have access to funding. Because for you to get funding, you have to have an organization, which is one of the things that we've seen happen time and time again, where young people who are really passionate, really want to bring about a change, are not able to. So one of the things the fund deliberately does is to provide funding for those people. Of course, it's capped because it's a bit riskier than funding an organization, but they do get access to about up to $1,000, where they can then take that into their community. So we've seen different types of things come out from that. We've seen young people pushing policy change. We've seen some people building awareness around key policies at their level. We've seen young people drive things around like environmental sustainability, drive projects around that. We've seen young people empower members of their community with key skills to ensure that they are able to secure their livelihoods, and they have access to alternative income streams, especially in like poor areas, or areas that are not as supported with funding, or things like that, right? So that work is already happening. That work is going on. What I want to see more, and I'm speaking of this in more from the lens of a woman, is I want to see more documentation happening, right? I want to see more, because you are asking me this question now. There are other people in other places who are also asking this question to say, what are young people doing in Nigeria? Young people are doing so many things. Young people are doing amazing things, and young women are doing such great things, right? But the problem is, where do we hear those stories? How do we hear those stories? And so when we do this work, it's important that we document it, right? So that posterity will know that someone was alive in 2025 and was doing this work and was changing these lives and was driving this change. So documenting has is something that more and more I'm seeing as really important that young people have. You do the work, you see the results, please write it, have it somewhere, document it. And if it involves a number of people coming together and maybe putting it kind of like in a submission to maybe a journal or an article, or just writing an ebook about it that you then put online or things like that. Let's have ensure that we have ways to document this because it's really important that we are able to see and remember the work that has happened, and even also help track progress, right? Because a community could be somewhere at a certain level, and then through your intervention, through your support, they then move to a higher level. It's important to be able to see that growth and be able to leverage on that to even access higher funding and higher support from other sources as well. So I think that that would be one of the things that I wanted to mention. But then in general, that's one thing. But then for women, right? For women, for young women, I'm speaking to young women, I would love to see us be more deliberate around building communities of practice. And because as you grow older, you realize that the saying that there's nothing new under the sun is so true, right? Every idea, it's very difficult to have an original idea. Every idea that you've thought of has been that you think of has been thought of most likely by someone else somewhere in the world, right? Um, but what we get when we collaborate, when we come together, is we amplify what we would originally have gotten in terms of results, in terms of outputs, outcomes, but also is we diversify thought, we diversify ideas. So I could be coming with this idea and someone else has an idea, and the merging of those ideas could intermingle and come up with something different, something amazing, something really unseen. I'm currently on a group. I joined a group about a year ago, which is for women working in the development space, and the amount of opportunities that have come out of that for me, for other women in that group, has been amazing. Simply because we came together and we decided we didn't want to go alone. Right, we just came together to share ideas, share opportunities, share. And there are people who are getting opportunities, who are landing consultancies, who are landing UN jobs just from that group. So I would say that whatever it is that you want to do, go together. Because one thing is that the world is very harsh on a woman that fails. When a man fails, there's a bit of leniency. There's room for you to fail, right? You are a man, it's acceptable. But if a woman fails, also what you find is your failure is then projected onto your gender, like, oh, that's it's women now. That's how they do, right? That's we know these things. So it puts a woman in a you are not just a woman. You are a a vanguard or a I forget the words for your gender. You are the person who has the hero who has shown up and is going to advance the cause for your gender, which is why whenever women have issues with each other, it's always a if you see two women fighting, it's never a woman A and woman A and woman B fighting. It's a women don't like each other, and that's why these women
Yes,
are fighting,
the
right?
men are
So
never supporting themselves.
yeah, so if you understand that, if you fundament, and that's not to say that women shouldn't fight. Of course, there are women that you come across and you will not like. That's fine, that's great, right? But also understand that the world is waiting, society is waiting for you to fail, society is waiting for you to fight, society is waiting. And so if you understand that, it becomes more imperative for us to build communities that we can fall into, that we can lean on in times when we are not at our highest, right? When things are not great, when we are low, when we need support, there's that place where you can stay safe. And as we build those communities, let's also ensure the person that you want in that group, right? If you want a group that is kind, that is respectful, that is welcoming, that makes room, makes space for people to be authentically themselves, then you should also be kind, you should also be welcoming, you should also be respectful, and you should make space for other people so they can be truly themselves. So those would be, sorry, it was a long response to your question, but these are like
Fine.
things that I'm really particular about, and just wanting to see more solidarity and more support around women.
Oh, so this is you accelerating action, right? This is a call
Yes,
to
yes,
accelerate action.
yes, exactly.
Oh, amazing. So what do you think about the theme for this year and how younger people too can also accelerate action in what areas?
Hmm. I think that since like the theme of this conversation that we've been having is really around building your career, being a better, more successful version of yourselves. I think accelerating action, keeping that in mind, is how do you take bolder strategic moves to build your own career, and that could be in different ways, like upskilling yourself, for example. And we never stop upskilling ourselves, we never stop learning, never stops, right? I finished 2 courses already this year. I'm signed up to another one. I have a certification that I want to get by Q2. Like, there's always different things, and then Q3 there's also something that I've mapped out to do. There's always learning going on. You have to be able to identify, if you identify what it is that you don't want, then you figure your way out to what you do want. Then you figure, what is it that I need to have to be able to get this thing that I want. So say, for example, if you want to be like a monitoring and evaluation, specialist or lead or something like that, right? You figure that that's what you want to do. You're really good with data, you're really good with all of that stuff. You also need to build your expertise around specific softwares and specific platforms, right? Excel will not be enough. Google Sheet will not be enough. You will need to build your expertise around SPSS, and all of those things that is used to analyze large data sets, right? And so you go into a training specifically to build your capacity around that. Then that positions you to then be able to apply for roles that you see when they come up, and it's that role that you want. So one, you need to upskill yourselves. It's not just saying, oh, I want to take a bold action, I want to take a strategic step, but you are not positioned to take that step when that step shows up, right? The opportunity is there, but you don't have the qualifications, you don't have the expertise that's required to be able to do better in that job. So I would say, really looking at building your capacity in specific areas as they align with your career growth. I actually wrote a few things down. The next thing is also around personal branding, as well. The power of personal branding, it cannot be underestimated. I think even for this chat, I don't think we've ever met. If we've met, forgive me, but I don't actually think that we've ever met. And you
No, we,
reached
we
out to me.
haven't yet.
Exactly, but you reached out to me on the basis of what you'd seen online, and you thought this person seems like she would have something to share, right? So that is the power of personal branding. This is an opportunity that came because you looked at my platform, you looked at how I had branded myself on LinkedIn, and you thought this would be a good person to invite. So personal branding is really important. How you are showing up in the world is really important, and your brand will show up for you when sometimes you are not in the room and you are not in that space. People will remember your brand quicker. And so it's important that you curate that brand deliberately, that you spend time to know and understand what is it that you want to be linked with, what is it you stand for, what is it that you don't stand for, and be able to design your brand with that light. And then something, it wouldn't seem on the surface of it, it wouldn't seem that important, but work life integration is really important. As we grow within our roles and we build our capacity, it's really important to find things outside of work, like outside of 9 to 5, outside of our careers, outside of our companies, to find things that give us joy. It's really great if your work gives you joy, but it's really it's better. You're a much better human, much better person if you can identify things outside of work that also give you that joy. Spending time with your family, spending time with your loved ones should be non-negotiable, right? Because that helps an aspect of your soul, an aspect of you as a human, that helps to make you a fuller, uh, better person, better version of yourself, so that when you also show up to work, you're showing up as a fuller, better version of yourself. So that work-life integration is something that we shouldn't take for granted. Maybe in the early stages, it might be difficult to balance because you want to show up, you want to be there, you want to take on every assignment, you want to show your boss that you are capable and things like that. But as you continue to, which is understandable, but as you continue to build that career, you should have at the back of your mind to deliberately make time for yourself so that you can rest, so that you can relax, and you can spend time with your loved ones. And I think all of these things that I've talked about is really will really help you to accelerate towards achieving your full selves, your full version of yourselves, and getting access to the opportunities that you're really looking out for yourself.
Oh, amazing. It's really been an impactful session. So we've spoken about you might not know what you want. These are some of the things I've jotted. You might not know what you want, but you actually know what you do not want. And that's really great because when you know what you do want, you can now begin to what you do not want. You can now build yourself to get what you want, and you would eventually get what you need. Like you talked about personal development. Nobody is going to drive your personal development. It's something you have to do for yourself. You take
Yeah.
the steps like you mentioned. Oh, you already have something you want to do, take courses, keep learning, keep developing yourself, and then over time you've already gathered the necessary certification you need to get to a particular level. But if you don't do that, nobody will do it for you.
Yeah.
So as you're accelerating action, you that is still a younger person now, the action you need is to first of learn, get the
Yeah.
skills, get the knowledge, and
Yeah.
then work with it. Don't just have it and not show it.
Yeah.
Work with it. And then for people within the social impact space, document your work. A lot of things are happening, but nobody's hearing about them. Nobody knows where they are happening. Nobody's even seeing them, except you're just saying it to the people in your network. Your network
Mm.
is not enough to amplify your voice, and the work you're doing. And you also said you need to learn. You started by learning and also giving other people the opportunity to learn. So it's not like you organized events because you knew it and then you wanted people to come and learn. It was a learning process for you, but you didn't want to learn alone. And that is
Yeah.
something I like to connect with the power of community. Don't do it alone, give other people the opportunity to do it. And when you're able to do it together with other persons, it becomes a lot easier. And then it's something that is achievable. And then you also mentioned that society is waiting for you to feel as a woman, right? So don't oblige them, please. Do the best you can, do the much you can. Take on every opportunity, prepare for opportunities as well. And most importantly, value transcends age, right? So, with this in mind,
Yeah.
have your values intact and then go for the best people who share the same values as you. Your mentor is not going to
Yeah.
be perfect. You can learn actively, you can learn inactively in Zainab's words. So, just ensure you're learning. And this brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much, Zainab, for being our guest for today. It's really been an
Thank you.
impactful session, and I'm super glad I was here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This was really good. Thank you.
Thank you. So, do you have any parting words for us just before we leave?
Let me just look at my notes. No, I think the recap that you've done is has been really good. I think just women, young women, also understanding that we are capable. You are capable. Um, you have what it takes, right? And also take be willing to take risk, right? Be willing to, because women's intuition is actually very strong, right? It's actually a very powerful thing. So sometimes, even when we're talking about something that you don't know what you want, but you know what you don't want. Sometimes what you don't want is actually your intuition speaking, right? If I hadn't taken that step, if I hadn't taken that risk to tell that agent to say, you know what, pause on my application. I want to go and work for a bit and come back. I had no job lined up. It's not like I had a job, but I was like, I don't think I want to go and do a master's in this area yet. Let me go work for a bit and see. And then, I positioned myself, I did my work, and the job came, and I did it for over 2 years. And then I realized, yes, now I know the area I want to go into, and I know what I want to go for my master's in. And then I took
Absolutely.
it. And yeah,
That's
sorry,
really
me.
great. So that's really great. Be willing to take a risk. So as you're living here today, that thing you've been pushing, do it. Do it now.
Yeah,
Do it
yeah.
today.
Do it, do
So
it, do it yesterday if you can.
yes, do it yesterday. So by tomorrow we know it's yesterday.
So
Thank
it's
you so
done.
much
Yeah,
for coming on this series. We are super glad to have you. Thank you.
thank you,
And
thank you.
yes, you can connect with Zainab on LinkedIn, Zainab Habernam. She has a lot of tips you can learn from. She shares a lot of insightful pieces and articles you can read and further develop yourself on. And then for events she's going to be on, please go there. Don't stop learning, like you said. So she's that person you want to learn from anytime, anytime. Thank you so much for having us sign out. Bye bye. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all for coming on Inspire Her series today. This is the second edition of Inspire Her. Excuse me. Thank you. This is the second edition of Inspire Her series, and it has really been inspiring. We're glad to have you. We're glad that you've always been here, and it's really been an amazing learning time. Beyond learning, make sure you practice what you're learning. Identify action steps to take to the that will bring you to the success you desire. So that goal you have, make sure you have steps that will lead you on. Most importantly, don't stop learning, take risk, and remember, value transcends age. You can have a mentor from afar, but as you learn from them, practice what they are teaching you, practice what you're learning, and keep getting better. The best way to accelerate action as a young person is to empower yourself, take bold steps, take new skills, learn new things, and get better because the success you desire is achievable if you can put in the work. This brings us to the end of Inspire Her series for today. I am Onyinye Asilofo, founder Tower Africa, and until I see you next week, stay here, stay connected, and keep learning. Bye.